Hello everyone. Welcome to the Old Man's Voice. They say success changes people. But in my case, it revealed who they really were. My name is Caleb Harlan, and I built Harlan Steelworks from nothing but rust, grit, and a promise to my dying father that the Harlan name would mean something again. I started with a single welding torch in a rented garage and turned it into a $5 million fabrication business. Every beam in this city, every bridge that gleams under the sun, has a piece of my sweat in it. My hands tell that story, scarred, burned, and proud, but my son, Ethan, saw only dirt. That he was born the year I won my first big contract. I swore he'd never know what it felt like to go to school with holes in his shoes like I did. So I worked, double shifts, 7 days a week. His mother, Rachel, called me obsessed. Maybe I was. But when Ethan got into Harvard Business School, I thought, finally, it was all worth it. That I paid every dollar of tuition, $320,000 total, without a loan or a scholarship. I even gave him $1 million in seed money to start something of his own. He promised he'd make me proud. That he did, just not the way I expected. The dinner that changed everything. It was Thanksgiving, 2 years after Ethan graduated. My wife had passed away from cancer the year before, and the family gatherings had grown smaller, quieter. This year, though, Ethan insisted I fly out to New York to see his world. His world was a Manhattan penthouse with a marble kitchen bigger than my entire first shop. When I walked in, everyone was wearing black suits and designer dresses: investors, lawyers, his fiancée's family. Not one pair of calloused hands among them. "Dad," he said, forcing a smile. "Glad you could make it." When I reached for a chair near him, he gently touched my arm. "Actually, could you sit at the other end? This table's for the executive partners." I froze. He said it softly, but the sting was sharp. Executive partners. I built him that seat, paid for every brick that made his fancy skyline possible. The man sitting at the head was Robert Langford, his soon-to-be father-in-law, CEO of a major investment fund. Langford raised his glass and said, "To Ethan Harlan, the visionary founder of Harlan Capital, soon to merge with Langford Equity Partners. A true success story." Everyone clapped. Except me. When Ethan caught my eye, he looked away. That's when I noticed something else. Not once, not in the entire speech, did he mention me or Harlan Steelworks. That he'd erased the name I spent a lifetime building. That a week later, I found out my accountant called and said, "Caleb, did you know your business loan was denied? The credit bureau says your company's collateral has been restructured." "What?" I asked. That he sent me the documents. Ethan's new firm had filed for an asset consolidation, somehow transferring ownership of Harlan Steelworks patents and trademarks under a shared entity called Harlan Langford Holdings. My name wasn't on it. But Ethan's was. Along with Langford's. That he'd taken my life's work and buried it under fine print. That I called him. He didn't pick up. I called again. Finally, he texted, "Dad, it's just business. You wouldn't understand. The merger increases brand valuation." Just business. That phrase echoed in my head like a gunshot. The next morning, I walked into my office, only to find the locks changed. My foreman, Rick, was standing outside. "They said the company's under new management," he told me. "Some corporate outfit bought majority control." Majority control. My own son had diluted my shares through a shell merger. All those years of signing documents I barely read, all the temporary restructuring he convinced me to authorize, for tax efficiency. Every signature was a nail in my coffin. Within 3 months, I lost everything. My trucks, my shop, my contracts, all rebranded under Harlan Langford Industrial Group. My name stayed on the logo, but not on the payroll. That I was offered a consulting position for $85,000 a year. I made double that when I was 25. That I turned it down. That I went back to the only thing I knew, welding. I rented a storage unit, borrowed a used rig, and started taking small repair jobs for local contractors. The first day, I burned my hand so bad I couldn't close my fist for a week, but pain was familiar. Betrayal wasn't, and yet, even through the anger, a part of me still believed Ethan would come around. I told myself he was young, naive, manipulated by Langford. I told myself he'd realize what he'd done. That illusion shattered one winter night when I saw him on television, shaking hands with investors, smiling beneath the headline Ethan Harlan, the future of American industry. He stood in front of a backdrop with the slogan, "From Steel to Strategy, the Harlan Legacy Reimagined. My legacy." Reimagined. Then came the phone call. Rick, my old foreman, said quietly, "Boss, you should see this." He sent me an internal email leak. Construction defects on a high-rise project under Harlan Langford Industrial Group. Cheap steel, falsified inspection reports, and unpaid suppliers. Ethan had cut corners to impress his investors. One of those unpaid suppliers was a friend of mine, a small-town mill owner I'd worked with for 30 years. The mill went bankrupt because Ethan's company withheld $400,000 in payments. That was it. That was the day I stopped being a father and became a man with a plan. That I spent 2 months quietly gathering everything I needed, old contracts, payment records, and partnership documents Ethan had helped me sign years ago. My lawyer, Sarah Kim, worked through nights reading every clause. Then she smiled and said, "Caleb, I think your son forgot who taught him business." Buried deep in the paperwork was a clause Ethan had overlooked, a reversionary interest tied to the original Harlan Steelworks intellectual property. In plain English, if the company's core assets were used without consent, ownership reverted to the founding shareholder. That's right. Every blueprint, every design, every weld pattern used in those high-rises, technically, still mine, and Ethan had used them all. That we filed the claim quietly. Within weeks, every major investor received notice that Harlan Steelworks IP rights were in dispute. Stocks froze. Banks pulled financing. Projects halted mid-construction. Harlan Langford Industrial Group was bleeding money, $2.6 million in penalties, halted cash flow, lawsuits piling like bricks. Then, I made one phone call. To Robert Langford himself. "Mr. Langford," I said calmly, "you used my designs without license. You owe me, by law, damages equal to every contract value, unless you settle." He paused. "What do you want?" "I want my name back. My company. And I want my son out." Within 48 hours, a legal settlement was signed. Langford kept his half of the merger, but only if Ethan was removed from all operations. My son's empire collapsed overnight. The reckoning. 2 months later, Ethan showed up at my workshop, the same rusty garage where it all began. He looked smaller somehow. The suit didn't fit as well, the confidence gone. "Dad, you ruined me," he said. "No," I replied, not looking up from my welding torch. "You ruined yourself." He slammed his fist on the table. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said quietly. "It makes me right." He stood there, chest heaving. "You don't understand how the world works now." I finally looked at him, at the boy I'd once carried on my shoulders to watch cranes lift steel beams into the sky. "You're wrong, son. I understand perfectly. I just refuse to sell my soul for a profit margin." He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to say. That he walked out, and I didn't stop him. Not that day. Not for a long time. 6 months later, Harlan Steelworks reopened, small but mine again. We hired local welders, the same kind of people Ethan once called replaceable. We rebuilt slow, honest, and steady. One morning, as I was heading to the shop, I found a letter taped to the door. It was from Ethan. "Dad, I took everything for granted. You built something real. I just built on top of it until it collapsed. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say thank you, for teaching me what work really means. I stood there for a long time, reading that letter until the ink blurred. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't sad, but because I finally understood what my father once told me: a man's worth isn't in what he builds. It's in what he refuses to destroy. That day, I hung the letter in my office, right next to a framed photo of Rachel, smiling in the sunlight, and every time I pick up my tools, I remember that the strongest steel isn't forged in fire, it's forged in betrayal, tempered by love, and shaped by forgiveness. So, if you're watching this thinking money makes the man, think again. Money can build a house, but it can't build a home. It can buy a company, but it can't buy back your name. I'm Caleb Harlan, and I built this empire twice, once with my hands, and once with my heart, and this time I'm keeping both.